What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video here on the Go On Fourth YouTube channel. We are back, and I say we because I have been doing the DFS videos all by my lonesome, but we're both here. We are talking about some wagers for this week that we like: college football, NFL, underdog fantasy. So here's how this is going to go. We are going to talk some college football here at the very beginning. We're going to move on to some NFL bets, and then we're going to talk about some player props that we like over here on Underdog Fantasy. Player props on Underdog Fantasy translate to any sports book. If you find the props that you like, find the props that we maybe bring up, feel free. They kind of translate pretty well, I think. But we're going to start off with college football. Sparty's more of a college football guy, so I'm going to let him take the reins on this one, and I will be a captive audience for this. All right, take it away.
Yeah, so just gonna give like five best bets I feel like for this upcoming college football slate this weekend. And
Yeah.
number one, really enjoy the Old Dominion Virginia under. I mean, you have two of the most least efficient offenses in the country, especially passing wise. Just expect the clock to tick a lot of this game because both teams like to run the ball. Not very efficient in doing so, but they will definitely put it on the ground. They will not try to put it in the air at all. As Virginia ranks 110th in expected points per pass, and Old Dominion's 114th. And there's only 130 FBS schools, so do the math there. They're not very good.
Yeah.
So very comfortable with that under. If you can get a 53.5, 52.5, anywhere in that ballpark, you should go ahead and take that. The second best bet I like Wake Forest minus 16.5 against Liberty. Hugh Freeze, he is over in that Liberty sideline. He's not in the hospital bed in the booth this week. But Sam Hartman back for Wake Forest, explosive offense. Liberty doesn't really pass the ball too well with Charlie Brewer over there, so just expect Wake Forest to get the lead early and really never look back. Third best bet, I really love the Texas Tech plus 10.5. And I know, Big 12 football, we're used to not defending the pass, not playing any defense. But this is not your grandfather. This is not your cousin's Big 12 team here. They are one of the better teams in the country in defending the pass and 13th in expected points per pass efficiency on defense. Devin Leary really struggled week 1 against ECU when he played a half competent opponent. And I just think that'll continue into this week. If Texas Tech can find something through the air, I think they might have a chance to even win this game. As last week they had a really hard-fought victory against a really good Houston team in overtime. So I expect them to keep this game within 10.5 points. If you can get it, right there, that seems like a very good bet.
So you're saying we're not going to get any more 70 to 75 Big 12 games?
We will not,
Okay.
unless you are betting on those Kansas Jayhawks.
I bet on the West Virginia Mountaineers last week against Kansas, and it didn't turn out great for me. All right, let's move quickly to number 4.
Yeah, I love Florida Atlantic plus 8.5 against the UCF Golden Knights. We viewed them last week against Louisville, and if they can't get the run going, it's going to be a long day for John Reese Plumlee, as he is not a very efficient passer. He's in there, just to run the ball.
Right.
So I like FAU to slow down their run a bit. They're playing at home. Kosi Perry has been a revelation for them. It doesn't look anything like he looked at Miami, which is good to see. Willie Taggart has somehow brought good football play out of him, and I think that will continue against Gus Malzahn and company. So if you can get FAU plus 8.5, listen, somewhere in there, I'll go ahead and take that. In the fifth best bet for me, I love Georgia Southern UAB over 54.5. I mean, who knew Georgia Southern could throw the football forward? That seemed illegal for them the past 20, 30 years, but here they are, one of the better passing teams in the sport so far through the first 2 weeks. And defensively, they will give up points. UAB is a pretty solid offense, so I really do like them to both teams go up and down. As you saw Georgia Southern last week put up 45 on Nebraska. I expect much of the same from both offenses.
So you like the over in this game,
yeah, over 54.5 seems. If you can get 54.5, 55.5, I would go ahead and take that.
Right.
And my upset special for the week, gonna throw this in there. I really do like Nebraska. It's going to sound crazy.
Oh, no.
But the Nebraska Cornhuskers at home, off of firing Scott Frost, new head coach, interim coach, Mickey. I'm struggling to find his name. Mickey Joseph, I believe his name is, but I expect him to come out with their hair on fire. The offense has already looked, tremendous through the first 3 weeks. If defensively they can get off some blocks, make some tackles, force Dylan Gabriel into some third and obvious, that crowd is going to be obviously raucous, and it should be a really good atmosphere. I expect it to come down to the fourth quarter, and for once, with Scott Frost gone, they will manage to win a close game in the fourth quarter. Give me Casey Thompson, Mark Whipple, the OC. Give me Nebraska 38-35 on that home turf.
Give me the O line coach. Give me chunks being spewed all over the field from Nebraska's O line in a hard fought loss to Oklahoma. I will definitely take. I'm almost certain I bet on this game, and I'm almost certain I took Oklahoma. I can't remember if I took the spread or if I took the money line in like a crazy parlay. I that is a true underdog story if Nebraska is able to win that game for sure. All right, so we're gonna move on. I mean, and again, looking at this slate of college football games, there are some interesting things that stick out in my opinion. I think BYU and Oregon is going to be a fascinating football game. Just talking college, I mean, BYU has been one of my favorite teams to watch this season, just because it's almost just chaotic to watch them play football. I really do enjoy it. I think they play with their hair on fire. They're just a fun team to watch. And I'm not necessarily saying that I really like any of these bets. But when Bo Nix is your quarterback, man, you have to fight extra hard to win football games. And BYU is I think BYU is a cute upset potential, nice money line bet if you're really, if you're just trying to put some money on the line on something. Penn State, I like them over Auburn. Auburn has TJ Finley at quarterback. Not much needs to be said about that. I mean, there's like I said, some interesting games here. Your Michigan State Spartans playing against Washington is going to be a fun game to watch, and I believe Miami and Texas A&M, another game that's just honestly just going to be just a really fascinating game to watch, to see how A&M bounces back from their loss, how Miami plays their first really big game against a big opponent with Mario Cristobal at the helm. So again, really, really interesting, let's say, weekend for college football, as every weekend tends to be. Moving on to the National Football League.
I would like to add one play. If you're a little worried about Nebraska money line, that's fine.
Sure,
I understand.
Sure. Everybody would.
First
right?
half, first half plus 7.5. Go ahead and just empty your bank account on that, and thank me later.
For Nebraska.
Yes, for Nebraska.
Okay, first half plus 7.5. All right, fair enough. And I don't hate that. Maybe a close game for the first half. All right. Again, moving on to the National Football League, the professionals that are very easy to bet on because they're professional players. None of them ever have bad games. They are what they are. You never get shocked by a result. Just ask the Colts. Just ask the Eagles last week if they were surprised at what happened to them.
Nathaniel
Hackett and the Broncos. I mean, it was a game. It was a week like no other in the NFL last week, and we're hoping for a little bit more stability in the waters this week. In my opinion, I really just want to see things stabilize. I think is kind of what I'm hoping for. What are we hoping for here? What are we hoping for this week?
So yeah, what I'm looking at, I love the Browns Jets under 45 or under 40.5. I mean, I think both, or at least the Browns will put it on the ground. The Jets, I mean, if they try to pass, it'll look a lot like last week where Flacco throwing 3 and 4 yard dump offs. Expect the clock to run a lot. Jacoby Brissett versus Joe Flacco battle. If they like the scoreboard up, then chalk it up to Vegas. But I just see like a 23-10, 23-13 Browns type win.
It definitely, I definitely agree. I could see that game being extremely close. I know we now we're going to talk probably about all of these games in some capacity. That does not mean we're going to put a bet down on these games. We'll just kind of say what we like in terms of if we were gun to our head, forced to take a spread, forced to take an over under, or just a money line pick if it's an upset, what would we do? In my personal opinion, the Thursday night game, I probably lean towards either the over or lean towards Chiefs minus 4.5. What are your thoughts on the Thursday night game?
Yeah, I would probably lean towards the Chiefs. Missing Keenan Allen's pretty big, and
it
just
hurts. Yeah, and J.C. Jackson might not play too.
Yeah, and being able to just zero in, like Mike Evans or Mike Williams rather. Spagnuolo's a really good, smart defensive coordinator, and you miss one of those weapons, he should be able to take advantage of. And obviously, the Chiefs offensively, they will get theirs and they'll score. So that
Yeah,
4.5 seems pretty good.
I agree, and I think if J.C. Jackson doesn't play, it's also even more so a problem for the Chargers. I think if he's ruled out, the spread could potentially even bump up to 5.5. Just because, man, there's it's so hard to keep up with the Chiefs already. LA's offense did not look at the races against Vegas last week, in my opinion. So there's a lot of things to be concerned about. No Keenan Allen, no J.C. Jackson potentially as well. Man, LA is going to be in for they're going to be in for a long night of trying to keep up with that Chiefs offense, and I don't think the Chiefs offense is prepared to slow down. Moving on to Washington and Detroit. Man, this is a tough game to call because I think both teams played just kind of a bizarre game in their own right on Sunday of last week. I thought Detroit they got the Hard Knocks boost, man. They were out there playing for their HBO money. They were out there just grinding for that publicity that they got from Hard Knocks. They were playing hard. Dan Campbell is going to have them ready to play every week. And that feels like such a cliche thing to say. We don't know anything about Dan Campbell other than the fact that he says crazy shit at press conferences, right? But you just assume because he says we're gonna bite their ankles that he's gonna have them ready to play every week. He's a gritty coach. He's gonna have them ready to go, dude.
Yeah.
Who knows, right? I think Ron Rivera is gonna take Washington. They're a well coached team. They're always gonna be in the hunt for that division because the division is terrible. And I think Carson Wentz showed signs of being a competent NFL quarterback, which is something the Commanders haven't had in maybe 2 years, 3 years. So
Yeah.
I would lean almost towards maybe the under in this game. I know that's kind of a crazy thing to say, but it feels like both of those teams came out of the gates firing a little bit in week one, and I think you might see it kind of really reined back in a little bit here. We may see both teams start to make a little bit more mistakes. Especially the Lions. And again, Wentz is a turnover-prone quarterback. I think the under is probably the safest bet because all it takes is for Wentz to throw like 2 or 3 interceptions and you hit the under. So,
Yeah.
I mean, and it's not out of the realm of possibility for him to do something like that, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would actually. I would probably favor the Lions at -1.5. Last week, Washington gave up 6.8 yards on the ground to Jacksonville,
Yeah.
and Ben Johnson's a really he's pretty good offensive mind. He has some really nice run concepts, and obviously we saw DeAndre Swift get off against what's everyone thinks is a pretty good front from Philadelphia,
Yeah, at
and
least the
they
front
got
four, yeah, for sure.
they got chunk plays up and down, and playing at home, having a good running game. I would probably just favor the Lions, and there's no way Aiden Hudson can have that bad of a week again, right? So,
Oh, surely not. No,
yeah,
I mean, yeah, and it does feel like a run heavy game, which is again why I kind of lean towards the under. Washington is missing 2 starting defensive tackles. Fedarian Mathis, Roll Tide, is out for the season, which is really unfortunate for him. He was, I think, he was primed and ready to have a good season, and he's out for the year. They've lost another interior lineman as well. So they're kind of scrambling to find some interior line help, and I don't think that's going to help them against DeAndre Swift and against Jamal Williams, who I thought also looked very serviceable on Sunday. So that's going to be tough. Again, Detroit gave up 1 billion rushing yards last week to the Eagles on all fronts. They were just getting assaulted on the ground. So again, Washington, Antonio Gibson proved again last week to be a serviceable running back in the NFL when he's not fumbling the ball away. So I think it's a run-heavy game, in my opinion. I don't see these teams just lighting the scoreboard up, throwing the ball. So run-heavy game. I like to lean towards the under here, but I also like the Detroit -1.5. If Washington wasn't so injured, and if maybe they're all their defensive linemen were healthy, I would maybe lean towards Washington because Detroit's defense was so bad last week. But it's just tough. And again, I think week one, it's easy to find things about teams that you can go in and kind of get lulled into that sense of like, oh, their defense is bad, so let's go over, right? Or their defense is bad, let's bet against them. But I think the under in this game makes a lot of sense, at least to me. We kind of talked about New York and Cleveland. This is a steaming pile of shit game. Nobody's going to watch this game. If you're a New York Jets fan and you watch this game, more power to you. If you're a Cleveland Browns fan and you're watching your team with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback, then you deserve a medal of honor or a Purple Heart or something because that experience last week that I had to sit through watching even like a quarter or two of that game was atrocious.
You don't get
Uh,
excited watching Mark Cooper route up, DBs and be wide open and not get the ball.
I do get excited about it because I've had to watch him do it his whole career. Unfortunately, I've spent more time in my life than I care to admit watching Amari Cooper on Twitter route up poor hapless defenders and the ball get thrown elsewhere. So that's been my experience with Amari Cooper since he's been in the league. So it's not anything new to me. It's not anything new to him. That's why he's fine with his role. That's what he's always done. Tampa Bay and New Orleans. This is an interesting game to me because of how Tampa Bay played last week. Like they didn't care whether they won by 3 points or whether they won by 20 points. Whereas when Bruce Arians was out there, he was trying to put 40 points on your head, and he didn't care about anything. He just wanted to put 40 points up. Todd Bowles is not going to be that guy.
Yeah, he sure is. And then I and the way the Saints have played them in past years. I mean, they lost the one game to them in the playoffs in 2020. Outside of that, they have absolutely dominated the series. They play physical, press man to man against the receivers, and obviously, they know when you play Tom Brady, you bring pressure with the front four and you press the receivers, and that usually gives some fits. The old Spagnuolo New York Giants defense. So I like them to continue that, and the Tampa Bay front on on the defensive end, they didn't look unstoppable
They
last
looked
week.
more vulnerable last week than they have previously. I agree.
Yeah, so we saw Zeke getting 5 yards of carry against them. So, if the Saints can get a little bit of that going, get some play action going, loosen up that defense a bit. There's some big play weapons out there, and I do like the Saints. Not only do I like them to cover plus 2.5, I like them to win the game. That money line plus 120 looks like pretty good value, especially at home games. Gonna be pretty raucous uh, in New Orleans. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Jameis Winston proved that he's a cardiac kid, man. Jameis Winston,
Yeah.
30-year-old cardiac kid. He could play from down in the fourth quarter. This is again going to kind of seem like a boring play. And this is wild coming from me because I tend to stay very far away from over unders because so much can happen in football. Teams can just not show up to the fucking races and get blown out by 30. I don't see that happening in this game. I think this is an underplay as well. New Orleans offense did not look up to it up until the very last quarter of the game against a hapless Falcons defense. That Falcons defense, while their secondary is okay, the defense as a whole was not very good. And New Orleans offense really struggled to get any kind of momentum or get anything going. So you could say, oh, they'll pick up where they left off in the fourth. That's cute, but we don't know that to be true. Alvin Kamara is dealing with, I believe, a rib injury as well. He's kind of knocked up. He's dinged up. Maybe knocked up isn't right.
I would hope Alvin Kamara is not knocked up.
I don't think he's knocked up. I think dinged
because
up.
then he would be on paternity leave, and that wouldn't be good.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, he's not knocked up. Let's say he's dinged up, banged up even. He's carrying a small injury, right? Now, whether or not that turns into anything major is unclear. By all accounts, I'm assuming he's probably going to play. But all it takes is one bad hit to his ribs, and he could be out for the game. If that happens, Mark Ingram has to step in, who I adore, but he is aging, and I don't think he's able to just pile up points on the scoreboard. I like the under in this game because of Todd Bowles and because of how the Saints' offense looked last week. Carolina Panthers and New York Giants. This is probably more of an interesting game than we would have expected just because of how New York played last week and how Brian Daboll played last week, or coached last week in particular. Looking at this game, I really do like the Giants minus 1.5. I know it's kind of crazy because the Giants are bad, like they're bad, and I am a fan of a lot of the players that the Panthers have, but I think the Giants will try to get Kadarius Toney involved this week. Maybe he shows up to meetings on time and doesn't piss in anybody's cleats in the locker room, and he gets to play a little before the fourth quarter. He's not suspended for 3 quarters without anybody knowing. And Saquon, I mean, Nick Chubb just demolished this Panthers defense, and the Panthers' run defense last year wasn't fantastic either. They don't appear to be a lot better this year. Saquon Barkley's coming off of one of the best games of his career. Man, it feels like a Giants win. and it feels like a Giants cover. Daniel Jones is going to run the ball some too. They showed that with read options last week. I like the Giants to cover the spread.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And I was just gonna say, a game is boring when we have to cite, the run game as as the
Absolutely,
reason
man.
why
Absolutely.
they're winning. But you hit it right on the head. They averaged, almost 6 yards per carry last week. Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt did their thing, and
Yeah.
Brian Dable played. He put out 11 personnel, 84% of the time where they ran the ball last
Yeah.
week, and I think they had over 150 yards when doing so. So he will have light boxes for Saquon, and they should be able to get a hat on a hat up front, and he makes one guy miss, and he can be hitting his head on the goalpost. So I do agree. I like the creativity with Dable over that other clown on the other side who will be fired immediately. Immediately after
Oh
the season,
man.
and hopefully for wasting one of the greatest offensive minds that we have in football, Mr. Joe Brady, who's
Mr.
over there with the
Joe
Bills now.
Brady.
So I just had to get that off my chest real quick,
Absolutely.
but
Absolutely.
yeah, I do like the Giants here as well.
Yeah, I think the Giants are safe. Now, the only way that this could possibly backfire is if Baker Mayfield looks to his right and remembers that he has Christian McCaffrey as his running back. If he
Yeah,
remembers that in the middle of the game at some point and starts dumping it off to McCaffrey, the Giants could have some problems. But last week he threw it to him 3 times. McCaffrey got like I think he was it under 10 carries. He might have gotten like 12 carries, but he had like 30 rushing yards and 3 catches. If that happens again, Matt Rule uh, should probably cease to exist in the realm of NFL football for the remainder of his career. It should probably be a step back to college for Matt Rule if we can't get Baker to throw the ball to one of the best playmakers in the league, right? It just doesn't make any sense. So again, that's the way this backfires. Is if Baker remembers that McCaffrey exists, then we're in a dogfight in New York.
yep.
But if last week was any indication, the Giants should win this game, in my personal opinion, and I think they cover a measly 1.5 point spread. Now the next game, I think they got bailed out a little bit. They got bailed out by the Jets and the Browns having a game this week. Because if the Jets and Browns didn't have a game this week, the Steelers and the Patriots would be the shitter of the week. Now, if you told somebody that, if you got a time machine and told somebody that 5 years ago, that hey, in the year 2022, the Steelers and the Patriots are going to have one of the shitters of the week, one of the worst games of the week that nobody's going to watch, they would put you in an insane asylum.
Yeah,
But
especially after watching the whole Jesse James play
yeah,
in that December game with
yeah,
Tom Brady and Big Ben. Yeah, they would have you locked up for sure.
yeah, but it really has happened. It really has. I mean, these eras end, these teams fade, and right now it doesn't seem like they are any closer to being back to what they once were. New England last week was completely outclassed by Miami in almost every aspect, and I think that score probably could have potentially been higher for Miami. I think they left some points on the board, and New England had a 9-minute touchdown drive in the third. If they don't have that drive, then I think that they could get their asses handed to them last week. So I think they were fortunate to come out of it looking as rosy as they did, which they didn't look great, but at least they didn't get blown away. Pittsburgh somehow home underdogs against a Patriots team that put up a 7-point stinker against Miami, while Pittsburgh had one of the best defensive performances that we've seen in quite some time against an offense that was lauded by many to be one of the best in the league. Uh,
Yep.
there's two different ways you can look at this game. First of all, if you can take an alt under at maybe 40, 44, 45, I mean, really, realistically, the under at 40 is not a bad bet either.
Not
But,
at all.
I mean, because the NFL is crazy, man. New England, Damian Harris might run for 100 yards, Ramondre Stevenson might run for 100 yards, and then New England somehow puts up 20 points, right? Who knows? Pittsburgh is in such a weird position because I think they're one play away from Mitch Trubisky getting a rolled ankle and Kenny Pickett coming in and actually making Pittsburgh a competent team. Uh,
Lighting the scoreboard up.
exactly, that's what I'm saying. So in my opinion, I think Pittsburgh plus 2.5 is not a bad bet at all, especially because they're at home. The Patriots are dealing with some injuries. Mac Jones has back spasms. He says he's fine, but these types of things are always interesting, especially after week one. I don't know who New England gets the ball to in the passing game that Pittsburgh can't handle. I don't know what they bring to the table that Pittsburgh can't stop. So I lean Pittsburgh in this game. I'd almost also probably take a money line.
Yeah, I agree with you. That plus 2.5 or the plus 108 money line, I do like. Just thinking about it, I mean, the defensive front for Pittsburgh is, one of the better defensive fronts in the league. And that's the only way that New England will be able to move the ball, in my opinion, will be on the ground. And, I really don't foresee that happening. I
Right.
foresee Tomlin and Flores and all the good defensive minds, on that staff, forcing
Yep.
Mac Jones to beat them. And if, that's the case, raucous crowd in Pittsburgh, home opener after just upsetting, the Super Bowl finalists last year. I
Right.
I expect that to be a pretty comfortable Pittsburgh win. Mitch Trubisky played absolutely terrible last week.
He's going to
So
make things uncomfortable in terms of winning that
yeah,
game.
yeah, very,
But
yeah.
I think I agree with you. I think that they probably win that game fairly comfortably. If anybody else was playing quarterback for them, it's probably more comfortable. One more tidbit on the Patriots. Along with having no receivers, their offensive line was putrid last week as well. So I know T.J. Watt's not playing, but I mean,
Yeah, like
you put
they
a
like to.
bad offensive line, a bad receiving core, kind of a not a statuesque quarterback, but a quarterback that's more of a pocket passer. Man, it could get ugly for New England on Sunday. And now that I say that, they'll win by 14. But it really could get ugly for them this week. Yeah.
I think
Um,
about a 10-point Pittsburgh win.
I,
I would.
it wouldn't shock me. No, it wouldn't shock me. 10-0. But yeah, it
Yeah,
wouldn't shock me. Um, Indianapolis Colts and Jacksonville.
shades of the old Ice Bowl.
Yeah, yeah. Indianapolis Colts and Jacksonville is not really a game that I'm super interested in terms of putting any money on it. I think that both of these teams are just kind of weird. They're scary teams because Jacksonville looked semi-competent at times, and then other times Trevor Lawrence shit down his leg. So I don't really know which Trevor Lawrence is going to show up, or maybe both of them show up. If that's the case, I would almost, and the Colts have historically over the past few years had some trouble with Jacksonville, especially on the road. Man, I find it hard to not take the Colts here. Uh, but it's almost more of like I would probably take the Colts money line in like a parlay. I don't know that I would really want any other part of that game.
Yeah, I have no idea if I were to bet this game. I have no idea what I would take. I don't really like the over under because I could really see both teams, scoring a bit. And
Sure.
honestly,
Yeah.
both defenses aren't really all that good.
Right.
And spread wise, I mean, I would probably lean towards a Jacksonville plus 4.5. I trust Doug Peterson, to get his playmakers the ball. Obviously,
And
saw
he's going to
Christian
keep the
Kirk.
game close, probably. It's a professional head coach. He's been doing it a long time.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And he thrives, as an underdog. So,
Right.
I
Like,
would.
yeah, I agree.
Yeah, yeah, I would lean probably towards in that direction. And the offense from the Colts last week looked very anemic outside the last 10 minutes of the game. So
Yeah, most of that game was spent kind of just like not doing anything with the football,
yeah,
which it would be a major concern. And again, Jacksonville is not worse than Houston, so take with that what you will. And the Colts will play better this week, but I mean they're also playing a better team, so it'll be interesting to see what happens with that game. This in my opinion is aside from the Thursday night game. Yeah, this is my game of the week. I think it should be a lot of other people's game of the week as well. It just means a lot in the AFC picture, just to kind of get a feel for who these teams are: the Miami Dolphins and the Baltimore Ravens. Two teams that I believe firmly will be competing for wild card positions this season. I think Baltimore is coming off of a very comfortable, if unspectacular, win against Baltimore or against New York rather. It was a game that they knew they were not going to lose at any point in the game, and it's very almost eerily similar to Miami, where there was never a point in the game where you thought like, oh man, they're not going to win this game, but it wasn't like either team was super impressive either. I think Miami, like I said, and I watched every snap of that game. Miami fan. I think they left points on the board. I think if they can find those points that they left, they have a real opportunity not only to compete in this game, but to beat the Ravens again for the second consecutive year. And again, the defense coordinator for Miami was still in the room with Brian Flores last year, right? He was still around, so he knows what they did against Lamar, which is just they zero blitzed his ass and they made him uncomfortable. And
So,
I'm
and
sure
then we
Baltimore's going to have an idea of what to do to negate that a little bit. But man, I, I like Miami plus 3.5, and I also like Miami money line. I think that Miami is going to win this football game. And again, I'm a homer. I'm super biased. I think Miami wins the game.
so you're saying that we can see some of that double A gap and completely trick Lamar again.
Yeah, I mean, I think you see some amoeba front. I think you see a lot of moving around, a lot of moving pieces. I think just trying to confuse Lamar's pre-snap read. I think taking away his first read is massively important. Making sure that you're keeping your integrity down the field as well, because he has proven that if you give him enough time and you don't keep at least a safety help over the top, that he can beat you deep. But man, in my opinion, I think Miami's just got the juice, at least
Yeah.
against Lamar. I really think that they've got his number. And now that I say that, Ravens by 40, but I like Miami to win the game. I really do.
Yeah, and I do like that thought process of I think it's going to be more of a defensive type game. Baltimore really good front. It's really going to force Miami to pass. And obviously, like McDaniel is a really good offensive mind. He'll have Tyreek in position to succeed. Tua,
Right.
Waddle, guys. But at the end of the day, Baltimore's a really good defense as well. I just see both teams kind of struggling a little bit on offense. But I would really push that under 44.5. I can see a little bit of defensive struggle and some team winning it, at the end of the game, 20-17 type
Uh,
game.
See, I think there's a possibility of that. I have a tough time looking at the over under for this game, because I think this game also has that potential to shoot out. I think that this has just as much potential to shoot out as it does to have a struggle, and it makes it really difficult to call, because there is an alternate universe that we live in where Baltimore puts up 24 to 31 points, and Miami has to match that pace. And if they do, and they have to throw every down anyway, because they're probably not going to be able to run the ball super successfully against Baltimore, um, it could definitely shoot over. But again, there is an equal, if not greater, chance that it also goes under. It is a very interesting game. I think that
Yeah.
plus 160 for Miami to win the game is absurd. I think that they are probably a much better opportunity, or much better odds to win that game than what they're given credit for. I like Miami. Again, super biased, super homer, but I think that's where I'm at with it.
Yeah, and I just don't see Miami, giving up a lot of those runs, to Lamar and the backs, the power reads and the zone reads and all
Right.
that. I feel like they'll be very disciplined. They faced it before, so like I don't think the Ravens are good enough, especially with that receiver room. Devin Dune and Rashad Bateman, they're fine, and Andrews, they're all solid,
Yeah.
but that's just not a passing game that's going to light you up. So I think that's really where they will have to win the game. And if that's the case, I just don't see them scoring, over 21 points.
Right. Right. And I can definitely see that being a possibility as well. Falcons and Rams. I mean, I would say we don't have to spend a lot of time on this game. We can almost skip it. I don't really want to touch this game because the Rams were so gross last week, and Atlanta was like better than they should have been. I don't think Mariota's going to be able to run as much as he did against New Orleans. This is a game that I'm probably going to stay away from. Gun to my head, you made me pick. I would probably take the under. I don't know that Atlanta's going to be able to score that much. I don't know that LA is going to. I mean, because Falcons have a decent secondary as well. I don't know that they're going to really do a whole lot. I would say look at Darrell Henderson's props, because I think he's probably set to have a pretty good game. He was kind of the workhorse last week. I know Akers probably will get more involved this week, but McVay's post game comments about Akers saying that he needs to make more of his opportunities, it doesn't necessarily scream I'm going to get him the ball more. So Darrell Henderson, I mean, again, gun to my head, I'm probably looking at Darrell Henderson props and saying like, all right, I'll just do one of these.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, gun to my head. I won't be betting this game at all.
No, no.
Maybe slapping a Rams money line on a parlay or something. I
Sure,
don't
yeah,
know.
yeah.
But
Uh,
I mean, if I had to, I think that the Rams should win this game by more
yeah,
than 11 points. I
should,
think Cooper
yes.
Cup should be able to do his thing. Hopefully they get some push up front this week, because there was no run game last week to help out Stafford at all.
Yeah,
And I don't really see the whole pistol zone read stuff working, especially with Bobby Wagner flowing sideline to sideline. There's a lot of speed on that defense, and they're really gonna have to drop back and pass to really to compete, and I just don't see that going well for the Falcons.
Yeah,
So
it's
I would,
probably one of the greater talent discrepancies you're going to see in the NFL because most of the time the NFL, at the very least, the talent discrepancy is not super massive. But with a really young rebuilding Falcons team and a really composed, experienced Rams team, I don't think there's much of a larger discrepancy in which like what team has more talent that we're going to see. Uh, they should win the game by 11 points. We know the NFL; they probably won't. So, again, gun to
sure.
my head, I'm looking at Daryl Henderson and I'm saying, all right, man, go get me whatever your rushing prop is, 55 yards. Just you got it. Go for it.
Yeah.
Seahawks 49ers. This is another game similar to the Falcons and Rams, and I just have no interest in betting. I may take a player prop for Trey Lance. I think Trey Lance probably has a better game than people give him credit for. I think people are a little bit down on him after the game he played against Chicago in the pouring rain, monsoon conditions, and everybody thinks Trey Lance is terrible all of a sudden. I am not a Trey Lance fan by any stretch. I don't even really think he's all that good. But judging him after the game against Chicago is foolish. He is going to be my cash game quarterback in on DraftKings this week because he's much too cheap, and I think his rushing floor is there. Seattle, they're coming off of a really passionate win, a really important win for them as an organization to be able to look Russ in the face and say we cheated you because your coach tried to kick a 65-yard field goal. It's massive for Seattle, and coming down from that game, and then San Francisco is going to have to answer back from their loss. I think it's just a perfect storm for San Francisco to win the game. I don't know by how much. I don't know if they cover the spread. But Trey Lance props I like. Debo Samuel props I like just because also no Elijah Mitchell. So I like Debo Samuel props, maybe rushing yards if there's a prop for that. I don't hate for Debo.
Yeah, I guess if I had to pick for this game, I'll probably go with the Niners. Same.
Yeah,
Honestly, this is the same story as the Rams
exactly.
Falcons.
Yeah.
It's a lot of speed on that defense for the Niners, and that whole RPO game and all that Seahawks tried to run against against Denver. I really don't. I think it's going to be non-existent. I expect the Niners to have a much cleaner offensive product out there on the field. And yeah, Debo Samuel props. I would smash those. I think he's gonna have a pretty big day, and
I
I would
agree.
expect him to win that game, by 9+. So that 8.5 looks pretty good to me.
Yeah, it looks good. It's kind of scary because again, Shanahan is not necessarily a guy that's known for just pumping points onto the scoreboard. And it's not that he can't. It's just that that style of offense, that run the ball offense. If teams will allow you to nickel and dime them down the field, then that's what they're probably going to do. So I mean, I don't
Yeah,
necessarily see it being and I think that the Seahawks slow their pace of play way down this week. I think that they're going to be much more the team we expected them to be on Monday. So again, I don't love the game. I would find a player prop that you like if you just have a gambling addiction and you have to bet on the game. I would find a player prop you like and go with that. Bengals Cowboys. Every fiber of my being says to take the Bengals plus or minus 7.5, but I will say there's a caveat. Uh, Everything about Dallas screams that they're terrible. They have no quarterback now. They have Mike McCarthy as their head coach. It just screams bad news, right? Bad news Bears is what Dallas Cowboys are right now. Cooper Rush last year, I think did he start one or two games? I don't remember, but the game that he started, he pushed the ball downfield quite a bit. He was
against Minnesota.
aggressive, yeah,
Yeah,
against Minnesota. He was aggressive against a Minnesota secondary that was bad, right? But he was aggressive. He showed that he was at least capable of making some NFL throws. I don't think Dallas is going to be as helpless as people may believe, but 7.5. I mean, it feels like 7.5 is probably the bet here. I'm probably not going to touch this game either, but 7.5 feels fine.
in favor of.
The Bengals. The Bengals. Sorry, the Bengals.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
would take the minus 7.5. I think they're probably. I think that's probably a solid bet.
yeah. This game it just scares me a little bit because I know Dan Quinn he's a really good defensive
He
mind,
is,
and
yeah.
if you paid attention at all, because they still have the pieces of defense to compete. And if he
Yeah,
saw anything that Pittsburgh did last week, and Ian implores it this week into his team, a lot of the too high shell and whatnot, and forcing over the middle, I could see a struggle win for the Bengals.
yeah,
But that Dallas offense is so inept, even with Dak, it's just
yeah.
like I wouldn't want to touch that. I would probably push towards an under 42.5 like
Yeah.
a 27, 13 type Cincinnati. Maybe Cincinnati win. I guess that would hit the spread as well. But just in case that Cincinnati's offense
Sure, just in
is
case they
is
really
shades
struggle again. Yeah, I can see
right. It's
that.
shades of last week, and Dan
Right.
Quinn adjusts.
And Dallas's pass rush is not bad. I mean, Dallas has Micah Parsons. They have some pieces out there that can get to the quarterback. They have
Parsons, Lawrence.
yeah, Lawrence as well. They have a decent secondary. I mean, they're not going to be pushovers on defense. I think the issue is going to be their offense is not going to move the ball very much. Defense is probably going to be out there most of the game. And so when the defense is out there that much, it gives Bengals a lot of opportunities to score. All it takes is one smoke screen to Jamar Chase, and he goes untouched for 80 yards. And then
Yeah, and he's gritty on
and
all of
he's
our
and he's
money.
grittying on the star at midfield. And I don't know if anybody on Dallas has any heart enough to go hit him like Saran Stacy hit T.O. Uh, but or is it Saran? I think it was Saran Stacy actually. It's the
Yeah,
Alabama
I
guy.
believe
Roll
so.
Tide. Yeah. Speaking of another game, I really just don't want to touch. I mean, most of these 4 o'clock games, I'm just not super interested in. Houston and Denver. I mean, I could not possibly tell you what I would
What an
want to do with this
outstanding
game.
coaching battle that is. I
Yeah, this is
love
the
to see
coaching
that.
battle for the ages. Lovie Smith and Nathaniel Hackett from last week. I would pump the under. Nathaniel Hackett plays slow, man. Denver plays really slow. They played really slow last week. Um, and again, I'm probably not going to touch this game just because I don't know that for sure. It could have just been an issue with the crowd noise, and it could have been an issue with headsets for all we know. But I'm not going to touch this game. But if I was going to touch the game, I would take the under. I just think, it feels like an under game to me.
Yeah, I would probably go with you there. I,
Yeah.
I, I personally will not be betting a Denver Broncos game for the rest of the season unless they're playing a team that I like. If they play the Chiefs, as they obviously they will in division, I will gladly go ahead and bet all my money on the Chiefs. But
Yeah.
I won't be touching the Broncos game after that debacle
No, no,
on Monday night.
no reason to do that. Arizona and Vegas. Again, this is kind of a game that's a weird one to me. It's kind of hard to even really touch this one as well. If anything, I would say maybe I'd lean Vegas -5.5. They're at home. Arizona's defense did not look very good. They don't have anybody that's going to stop Devontae Adams from scoring at will. They apparently don't have anybody that's going to stop Darren Waller from scoring at will because Kelsey went crazy against their team as well. Man, it just feels like Arizona's in a really helpless place right now in terms of defensively. They looked a little lost. Offensively, they definitely look lost. I think Raiders -5.5 feels good to me. Money line in a parlay, I think is almost a lock if you're going that route.
Yeah, I would favor the Vegas as well. I love the pass rush that they have, and Lord knows Kyler Murray cannot feel any pressure at all. I think this probably gets this result gets around 17 or so points. I think Vegas handles him pretty easily, and
Mm-hmm.
Cliff Kingsbury will be firmly on the hot seat.
Yeah,
I think after
yeah,
this lowly performance at Allegiant Stadium.
I agree. Yeah, I think so. I think the only thing that may save his job is him telling owners that Hopkins isn't here. I don't really have the weapons on offense that I need. But even still, you traded a first-round pick for Marquise Brown. And if you can't make it work, then I think they're gonna have to. I think they probably have to move on. I think it's run its course. I think he's had enough time to really implement his system, and it's proven over the past few years that his system is just it's good but not good enough in my opinion. I think that they probably need to look elsewhere. And a team that did look elsewhere this offseason was Chicago Bears. Matt Eberflus.
Eberflus.
Eberflus, right? I can't say his name. It doesn't matter because I'm never going to need to. Chicago, they're a helpless team. Green Bay is they're last week looked like a helpless team. This is a game that I'm going to stay very far away from. I probably will also stay far away from watching it if it wasn't the Sunday night game. So I actually have to watch it because it's the only game on. Uh, Under. I mean, I really don't know. I would almost say under, just because I don't want to take the Packers -9.5 because if they show up anything like they did on Sunday, I know the Vikings are much better than the Bears, but man, I just it's hard for me to even take the Packers with any kind of spread. I would almost just lean towards taking the under and just hoping the Bears don't score.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree that last week's performance was offensively was very anemic against a pretty suspect Viking secondary. But I still have a hard time not believing in Green Bay minus 9.5 to win the game by 10 plus against a likewise team at the wide receiver position, the Chicago
Yeah, yeah,
Bears.
I agree.
I just think they will struggle passing the football. And then I mean in last season's game, Alan Lazard got loose against the Bears on Sunday night, and he put up some big numbers and they won that game very comfortably. So I really expect more of the same. They'll get some two back stuff, probably more explosive Aaron Jones plays. Hopefully, they get him in the pass game.
I
So
hope he
I
doesn't
would
score a touchdown all year, personally. After
yeah, as
after what I
you
went
had
through,
him.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
you
took.
had him last week.
For those of you guys that didn't know, I took Aaron Jones in Underdog Fantasy last week. He was the one thing standing in my way. My five team or five player parlay in Underdog Fantasy. He was the last thing I needed. I needed him to score a touchdown, and he barely touched the ball. So we're just gonna forget that happened. I think if you take Green Bay minus 9.5, you need to be ready to face the consequences of those actions if they are unable to score points. But again, I agree. Chicago's not a very good team, but it's hard for me to put any kind of money on the Packers right now with how they looked. So again, I would maybe lean towards taking the under, but I think money line is probably safe if you're trying to do a crazy like long parlay. I think money line's fine for Green Bay. I think they win the game. I just don't know how comfortably it is. Buffalo Titans. I think Buffalo's comfortable in this. I mean, 10 points is a lot. I don't really see a world though in which Tennessee sticks with them. I think Derrick Henry would have to have a pretty massive game, and when you wad up in the I form every time you run the ball, it makes it kind of difficult for him to do that. I would on. Oh, I was gonna say I'd almost lean towards the under in this game as well. I'm really playing it safe while these over unders instead of actually picking spreads. Just because a lot of the spreads are kind of massive, and it makes it a little tricky. This is probably a game I wouldn't bet on anyway, but maybe I would take Buffalo minus 10. I mean, Tennessee wide receiver room didn't look good. Tannehill, I mean, Henry didn't look fantastic. That offense is still the same as it's always been. I would almost just lean towards Buffalo minus 9.5 and just pray.
Yeah. So I mean I looked earlier today and this was one of my better bets. It was 50.5 the over under.
Yeah.
And I see it's now down to
48, yeah.
48.5. I actually think Tennessee will compete whenever they're written off. Like the game against the Rams last year, I think they were 7.5, 8 point underdogs. They
Yeah,
go in there.
yeah.
I think defensively, Vrabel, obviously offensively, he is lost as they can come. Him and Downing, but
Yeah.
defensively, he is an outstanding mind. A lot of the Josh Allen. I love Josh Allen. I think he's progressed tremendously, but I think this week it might be a pump the brakes kind of week. And I would lean towards either Tennessee plus 9.5 or under 48.5. I think it's going to be one of those slow, grinded out kind of games that'll kind of come down to the end.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I can see that happening, and I can see Tennessee getting blown out. But if they get blown out, I don't think it's going to be 40 to 10. I think it's probably going to be closer to maybe like a 34 to 17 type of game. So
Yeah.
it definitely will be, I think, close the over under, but you know. I think the under is probably fine. I think Buffalo minus 9.5 is okay as well. If you feel comfortable about it, Tennessee secondary didn't show me anything that really impressed me. They let Richie James kind of get loose. If you let Richie James get loose, Gabe Davis and Diggs they're gonna have a fun game. So I don't know. Buffalo, I like them minus 10. If I had, again, gun to my head, I had to pick one, I'd maybe take that or the under. Minnesota Philly. This is another game where I kind of like the underdog money line here. I like Minnesota, man. I think they look good against Green Bay. I think that the Eagles are not going to have a corner or safety that can keep up with Jay Jetta. I think Justin Jefferson is going to do whatever he wants to them. I think that the Eagles' linebacking core is not going to be capable of keeping up with Dalvin out of the backfield or Madison out of the backfield. It feels like Minnesota running roughshod, and it feels like Philadelphia trying to play catch up with Jalen Hurts at quarterback all game.
Yeah, it's just. Do you believe in the Kirk Cousins Monday Night Football narrative?
Not, no, I don't. Not right
Yeah.
now. Not right now. Not against the Eagles. I
Oh,
don't. No.
right. Obviously, Kirk, Michigan State guy. I like him, but he struggles with pressure in his face, and I know Philadelphia. They will get pressure in his face, and it looked really good last year. Last week, it looked really
Yeah.
clean. All these condensed sets that Kevin O'Connell has brought over, moving Justin Jefferson all around. I just think that's going to be a little bit muddied up this week. Much better. Not a, I guess, really same level of secondary. I guess you would consider Green Bay and Philadelphia this year. And I would favor Philadelphia at home. Home crowd. Think that might play a factor in it. Minnesota might
Yeah.
have to go sign accounts. And we might see a lot
Yeah.
of the same Denver effects. So
It could be.
I personally am going to lean towards the Philadelphia -1.5 or money line, whichever one you want.
So this is really the first one that we've actually disagreed on. I have a tough time, man. I have a tough time believing that Jalen is gonna. If Minnesota's able to get ahead, if Minnesota's able to go up by 10, I think that game is over. I don't think Jalen is going to be able to bring them back if they manage to get themselves down by more than two scores, or more than one score, really. So it really just kind of depends on the game flow. It depends on how the game shakes out. I think talent wins out, and I think that Minnesota, at least on offense, has more talent. I know that the
Yeah, and
Eagles
I
have
do
AJ
agree with
Brown,
that. Yeah.
but I just again, man,
I guess I just have worries about the Minnesota secondary trying to keep up
sure, oh
with
yeah,
AJ Brown, but Devontae Smith as well. I expect him to have a pretty good week this week after having a goose egg last week.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's definitely going to be an interesting game, and I actually do like this game. I think it's going to be a fun one to watch. So if Tennessee Buffalo's a blowout, then at least we won't have to have both screens up to watch the other Monday night game.
Right.
We can just focus on one. Moving over to Underdog Fantasy. By the time this comes out, this video, I'm assuming that it'll be before the Thursday night games, so we can talk about these. We're not going to go into crazy detail because this video is already 50 minutes long, but we'll kind of just briefly talk about, if we like a player, if we like any of these props, and they are bound to change before the games. This is just as they stand right now. So the first player on the board is Justin Herbert. I would probably lean towards. First of all, not taking Justin Herbert on any of these. If again I had to, I would probably take. I would probably take interceptions. I think they're going to be playing from behind. He may force one. No Keenan Allen. There could be some miscommunication with some of those lower on the depth chart receivers. All it takes is one. I mean, I think him throwing an interception is not an outlandish thought there.
Yeah, I guess if I had to take one, I would agree with you right there. I do
Also,
like Kansas secondary as well,
yeah,
so I think they may jump past one of those shorter routes that the Chargers like to throw, and like you said, it only takes one.
sure, exactly. I mean, again, it's not like Justin Herbert's incapable of throwing picks. He's thrown plenty. Austin Eckler, uh, and it's not being a hater. It's just saying like he will throw picks from time to time, and I don't see why he. I don't think he's impervious to throwing interceptions in this game, particularly, especially if they throw it as much as I think they will. And to be fair, I do think they're going to throw it a lot. 38 pass attempts, though. There's so many different game script reasons why they don't get to 38 pass attempts. I just feel like this is probably safer. Austin Eckler, uh, he's probably a no touch for me. I managed to get his receptions when it was at 4.5 yesterday. I feel good about that, especially finding out Keenan Allen is out. This is half PPR, so his fantasy points are kind of questionable. I would almost lean, obviously, just lean towards not messing with him at all. Uh, I would take his receptions being higher, and if worst case, I think he pushes. But I definitely think he gets 5 catches out of the backfield.
Yeah, I would go with the. I think I actually like. I'm not sure what the fantasy points would be. I do like him to get in the end zone this week. I know a lot of people had him last week, and I do like him to have a bunch of catches and at least 12 carries. Last year he had 11 carries in the first game against them. In the second game he had 13 carries. So I do like if they do get down to the red zone, I do like him to punch it in. And obviously, like you said, they no Keenan Allen. Herbert will probably check
Somebody
down to
has
him.
to get the targets, right? Somebody has
Yeah,
to get targets. So I think Eckler's probably a
yeah,
safe bet. Mike
right.
Williams, I would not touch Mike Williams personally. Because it's easy to say, oh, he'll get 5 catches. He's wide receiver 1. That's fine. And I like 5 catches. It's fine. I would almost lean more towards the receiving yards more than receptions because he's been known to be a home run hitter, and I really think that he's more capable of hitting a home run than racking up receptions. So I like the 70 yards. because he's just as capable of having a 4-catch, 80-yard performance as he is having a 10-catch, whatever performance. I think I like yards more than catches for him.
Yeah, whenever you see, his receptions at 5 and yards at about 70, that probably, you probably think that he's gonna get an explosive play here or there. So I would agree with you with the receiving yards.
If he doesn't get an explosive play, that game could get out of hand. So I
Yeah,
feel like they're probably going to be testing Kansas City a little bit deep, and I do think all it takes is one for him to come down with it. Receptions is just tough because there's a lot of game script reasons why he may not get those catches. You saw Jerry Jeudy and Courtland Sutton. I took both of them. I took Courtland Sutton at 4.5, Jerry at 5. Neither of them got there. Crazy shit happens in football. I think you can bet on the crazy shit being he's going to get 70 yards and just get a crazy play versus praying to God that Justin Herbert throws him the ball 5 times and he catches all of them. Gerald Everett, I probably wouldn't touch this one. I would say maybe lean towards probably the under on receiving yards. I think is probably safe. He and the backup tight end whose name is escaped, Trey McKitty, something like that. I played him in DFS this week, by the way, showdown, but I've forgotten his name. Gerald Everett, I would hit the under. He had I think 45 yards last week. I just I don't know. It's just it doesn't. I wouldn't touch him in general, but I would probably hit the under.
yeah, I probably wouldn't, touch actually
No,
anything with Gerald Everett.
no,
If I bet
not
that,
for a
you might
while.
as, you might as well give me the gambling hotline, the one eight
Yeah, I can
hundred
I can I
gambler.
can shoot it to you if you make that one. Josh Palmer, again, I'm not a guy that I would really mess with. Uh, Maybe receiving yards being higher because he is wide receiver too. Maybe there's a lot of attention paid to Mike Williams and he's able to get there, but he's not a guy that I'm really interested in either. Pat Mahomes is a guy that I am interested in. I took Pat Mahomes. No, I didn't. I lied. If I did, which I did not do, I would almost lean towards again probably him throwing an interception. Um, Not that he is Mr. Interception, but all these others seem okay. Passing yard seems fine, 300. It seems like he probably will go over that. So maybe I would change it. Maybe I would do 300 passing yards. But again, game script, they could be beating the Chargers by like 17 before you know it. And if they are, and you get down to the fourth quarter and he doesn't throw the ball anymore, does he have 280? Does he have what does he have? I think he probably gets to 300. I also think he probably there's a probably 45% chance those pick. So I would take passing yards here for Mahomes.
Yeah, I would probably go with the touchdowns. Last year he had three, I think
I
three
don't
and
hate that.
four
Yeah.
against them, and Andy Reid. There's nothing that kills him more than just a simple handoff to a running back at the goal
Yeah.
line.
Yeah.
He's going to motion 3 guys and hit the underneath shovel pass. So I would, they get down to the red zone, and if they score, more than likely it will be a Pat Mahomes passing touchdown. So I would probably smash that over 2.5.
Yeah. CEH, I'm not super interested in. I know he had a good fantasy performance last week. He had 7 carries and he had 3 catches. So I'm not super. I don't think he's super involved in the offense. Watching the game, it seemed like he was more involved than he actually was because he had those 2 touchdowns. I would fade anything with Edwards-Helaire. I don't hate receptions, but at the same time, is he going to get the receptions or is Jarrett McKinnon going to get the receptions? Is Pacheco going to get catches? Like we don't know because McKinnon I think had the same amount of catches last week as CEH. So again, game script dependent. He's probably just a guy that I'd probably fade. Jarrett McKinnon, same thing. 2 receptions is gone apparently, but even then I don't know that I would have taken it. Juju at 5.5 is somebody that I would take. I got him at 5. I like him more at 5 than 5.5, but I still think he probably should get 6.
Yeah, I agree. I will smash Juju. Well,
Whoa.
until he gets.
Okay. Go ahead. Continue.
I'm not Jackson Mahomes. It's okay. But no, yeah, I mean, until he gets up to 6.5, will be a focal point in that
Yeah.
offense. Him and Kelsey, and he is so good in the slot, and especially with if there's no J.C. Jackson out there to
Yeah.
stop him. I mean, I can see him having 8, 9 catches. So I would, smash that 5.5.
Yeah, I think so. I think he's definitely going to break that. MVS, I took him under 3.5. I don't. I don't get it because people thought he was going to be good this year, and he's been playing with Aaron Rodgers his whole career and has never done anything. I don't understand the interest that people have in MVS. He's a deep threat that can't catch. He's not very good. I hit under, just because if you want to throw to a deep threat, you have so many on that team. It really just kind of you have to get lucky. Uh, and for him to get open 4 times and catch the ball 4 times, it just doesn't seem like a high percentage bet to think he gets more than that. So I went under. Kelsey,
Yeah. So
go ahead.
actually, I took his under 46.5 receiving yards as well. I
Yeah,
Last week he had 4 targets and 4 catches. Do you think he's going to do that every week? Probably not. And a
no,
lot of it was, the second half where they were just spreading the ball around. So I I don't see him being, a big focal point in the offense. Maybe there's a deep ball, one deep ball to him, and if he catches it, so be it. You got it. But I think 46.5 under, receiving yards is pretty safe.
yeah, I like that one too. The only concern I have with that one is he's kind of like Mike Williams, where all it takes is one, and
Yeah.
you get a crazy MVS streaking down the sidelines catch for a touchdown for 80 yards, and you're pissed. Whereas if that happens to me with under 3.5 receptions, I'm probably smiling because he's not going to do anything the rest of the game. Travis
Right.
Kelsey, I took the over for 79.5 receiving yards. I don't see a world in which he doesn't get that many yards unless Kansas City just starts blowing them away and they kind of let off the gas. But even still, I think he gets 80.
Yeah, I took that as well.
Yeah,
I mean, he last year he went absolutely ballistic against them. So
yeah,
I will very safe with especially with the likes of Drew Tranquil out there playing
right, yeah,
linebacker.
exactly.
I think, man, you can go out there and get 40, 50 yards against him.
I think that you could go out there and give up as many yards to Travis Kelsey as he did, and as he will. So
Yeah, exactly.
I think we would probably be just as competent at covering Drew Tranquil. Miko Hardman, I'm not touching that. If you want to bet anything on Miko Hardman, you can. He's kind of like MVS to me, where it takes one and he gets the yards. He had 3 catches last week. He had 6 targets. So realistically, he could have definitely smashed that over. Just not a guy that I'm interested in. I like Miko Hardman, the player. I thought them bringing in MVS is kind of like limiting Miko a little bit. I think he probably deserves a spot on that offense to compete for touches, and he is competing for touches. But I think bringing in MVS is kind of redundant. You have an MVS type guy in Miko, and it just kind of feels weird. So that's my picks for Thursday. I had Eckler over 4.5 catches. I had MVS under 3.5. I had Kelsey over 80 receiving yards and Juju over 5 catches. So I feel good about those. Moving into Sunday's games, and again, we don't have to necessarily talk about every single player. Just kind of go through some of the ones that we like or don't like. I hesitate on Brady's passing yards. 276, especially after the performance of the offense last week. Chris Godwin's also out. I would almost steer towards the under for 276 for Brady against New Orleans secondary. That's not bad.
Yeah, I would favor the probably the under,
Yeah,
especially with how Tampa Bay played last week.
right.
Just hand the ball off, playing kind of slow, and then you go back to last year. I mean, they lose a 9-0 game.
Yeah,
So I would, and they're gonna again. I said earlier they're gonna play pretty physical with the receivers. I don't really see him hitting over 276.5. If they were to win the game, I think it would be a lower scoring
I
type
think so too.
affair. So maybe he looks towards Leonard Fournette there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate Leonard Fournette. It's just kind of again a situation where is it real? Is that volume real, or was it just week one madness? You know what I mean? It's kind of hard to say. I will say Julio Jones last week had a bit of a resurgence. I think if his prop with Chris Godwin out is like 3.5, I would almost lean towards the over. Uh, I don't know what his prop is going to be. If it's 3.5, or if it's maybe like 45-ish yards, maybe 40 yards, I would almost lean towards favoring Julio in that spot. He's got to throw the ball to somebody. And Julio, his talent far outweighs Russell Gage. Um, I think he's a competent wide receiver too if he can stay on the field. So I like Julio this week to potentially cause some issues for the Saints, and not maybe not even that, but just to kind of be that wide receiver too that gets a few good looks and has an opportunity to do something with the ball. Saints offense, oof. I don't like any of the Saints offense in this game. I'd struggle to find a play that I like. Maybe oof, I don't know. That this is not something that I'm interested in at all. I would almost just fade everybody. Maybe Jameis over passing yards just because they probably are going to have to throw the ball a decent bit. But I don't know. I don't like any of it. Kamara's not getting the
Yeah,
ball from Jameis, and he struggled last week on the ground, and uh, you know Tampa Bay's run defense was not great on Sunday night, but again could be much better uh, against New Orleans. I would just fade the whole game. Maybe take Jameis higher passing yards if you want to.
yeah, I would probably go towards Michael Thomas over 54 and a half receiving yards. Him and Carlton Davis have grown a nice rivalry
Yeah,
of the last few years, and he
right.
takes that matchup pretty personal. So I expect him to have a pretty good day,
I don't
honestly.
hate that. Yeah, and see, I think those are fine to pair. I think if you're going to take the over on Michael Thomas receiving yards, and you probably would also want to take the over on Jameis's passing yards, I think they're probably correlated. I
Yeah,
think if Michael Thomas has a good game, that means Jameis is probably also having a good game. I don't know how much correlation really plays into Underdog. I don't really use Underdog all that much. At least I haven't previous to this year. Uh, Dolphins game. I don't know what Tua's prop was. I feel like it was lower than 249. I feel like it's going up. I think it was like a 235 or 237 before. So they're kind of creeping up. I liked Tua's over when it was around 230. At 250, I'm a little bit less excited by that number. I feel like for them to compete and win the game, he has to throw for about 250 to 270 yards. If they're in a shootout, he's going to throw for 300. I don't like it where it is now. I think it started at about 235, if I remember right, and I loved that number. I don't love this one. So I would fade to a completely, unless that number goes back down, which I don't think it will. Chase Edmonds, I kind of like the over for receiving yards for Chase Edmonds a little bit. I think that's solid. I mean, I think he's going to get used in the passing game. He broke a nice reception, a nice run after catch opportunity on Sunday against New England. So I think they're going to have to find the way to get their playmakers the ball. I think Chase Edmonds is one of those playmakers. I think that he has a potential to hit higher on the receiving yards.
yeah. I guess for this game, I'm I'll probably just fade the whole game as I think it will be a pretty defensive kind of game.
Yeah, and it could very well be. Lamar's props are hilarious. By the way, this is hilarious. He has less passing yards prop than Jameis Winston. So if and again, in my opinion, based off of this, what I'm looking at is people do not think that Lamar is going to have a crazy game, and if Lamar doesn't have a crazy game, they're not winning that game. So these props right here tell me that people think the Ravens are losing, and I agree. I'm not touching any of the Ravens this week. No shot. Definitely not touching this guy. Uh, Against the Giants, I mean, I I struggle to find an avenue where I like Baker. Um, McCaffrey feels like the only play from the Panthers I would consider. Um, DJ Moore was non-existent last week. Robbie Anderson was existent, but fantasy point prop I don't really love anyway on this site. I would almost lean towards the rushing and receiving yards over for Christian McCaffrey if you're going to do anything, just because overcompensating for last week potentially could get him more touches, get him more involved. The Giants' defense is not very good, in my opinion. I think they overperformed last week against Tennessee. I think they'll come down a little bit from that. So McCaffrey's over is not my least favorite thing. Other than that, I wouldn't touch this game.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't touch anything in a Baker Mayfield Daniel Jones battle.
Exactly. Yeah. In terms of Daniel Jones, however, I don't hate his rushing prop. 23 and a half. He runs a lot. Daboll tried to get him involved in some designed run plays. I like Saquon's over rushing yards. That's actually a smash to me. I actually would probably go with his all-purpose yards because I do think he'll get a lot of receiving yards as well. That rushing total for him is pretty low, seeing what Nick Chubb did to Carolina last week.
That is true.
Surprisingly
Now that
low,
I'm seeing
actually.
that, I guess I'll be more
Yeah,
inclined to take his rushing yards.
surprisingly low. I don't know if I would lean towards rushing yards or towards all-purpose because you never know what kind of game plan Daboll has. Maybe he's like, all right, well, we feel more comfortable throwing to him this game or whatever. So maybe take the all-purpose, but that 76 rushing yards is screaming, just play me. So I'll probably play that. I'm gonna keep scrolling. I'm probably not gonna stop. I mean,
Yeah,
George Pickens under. That actually feels okay. I don't hate that.
yeah. I guess you're just worried if he gets one jump ball, which I mean they
Sure, I
tried to
mean
get him the
they
ball,
did.
but it just wasn't accurate.
I
So.
mean, if it's a jump ball from like 20 yards out and that's all he gets, then you're hitting your under. I mean, it really just depends. I'm not touching this game for any reason. I mean, Fryermuth, I think maybe 4 catches is pretty likely. I think he
Yeah.
might end up with that. Um, if Najee Harris doesn't play, I think he's going to play. But if he didn't for whatever reason, I think Claypool's in play for maybe fantasy points to hand him the ball and give him a touchdown or something
Uh,
crazy. But
all-purpose yards. Sure.
yeah, all-purpose yards wouldn't be bad. But I mean, that's a fade the whole game probably. Uh, Jonathan Taylor, that's a lot of yards. That's just a lot. Matt Ryan, Michael Pittman. I mean, see this game just doesn't really. It doesn't. I don't get excited when looking at this game for any reason. I think everybody's kind of appropriately set on their props here. I kind of like where all of them are. I wouldn't really. I don't know. I think they're perfectly placed. I really don't have any interest in any of them. Kirk, same thing. I think that's appropriate. Uh, no ETN prop, which is interesting for like receptions or receiving yards or anything. That's something. Uh, yeah, I have no interest in that game either. Wentz, 250 total yards feels like he should get that. Um,
Yeah.
I also think Antonio Gibson hits as well, 81.5 all purpose against Detroit. I think that's a smash. Uh, other than that, I mean, I don't like any of the receivers because you never really know. Terry was really quiet week 1. Curtis Samuel could have been an anomaly. Who knows? Jahan Dotson had 2 touchdowns on like 3 catches. So probably fade the
Yeah, I
pass
would.
catchers
Yeah,
on
I
that
would
one.
definitely. Yeah, I'm definitely with you with the Carson Wentz 250 and a half.
Yeah, I mean
Totally.
that
I
just
think he
feels
might.
good.
Yeah, he might just get that in the air, and obviously he'll sprinkle in his 10, 15 rushing yards as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
So
I mean that one feels fine. And again, I think if gun to my head, you made me play something from this game, but you wouldn't have to because I'm probably going to play both of these. I like Wentz and I like Gibson. I think that offensively, I think they probably put up about 350 yards, and I think that there's more than enough room for Wentz to get his and for Gibson to get his. And I know that's probably a negative correlation in terms of what you would expect, but I think there's room enough with that Detroit defense being as bad as they were on Sunday. I think there's room enough for that. Um, Jared Goff, Amon Ra, I don't really get excited by either of these. I think if Detroit's playing from behind, Jared Goff probably hits over 235 passing yards, but it's hard to say. Um, Jeez, I'm gonna keep scrolling. Well, no, I'm gonna keep scrolling. I just had to see what they
yeah,
had for Michael Carter. I don't like it.
1-800 gambler.
12.5 rushing yards for Jacoby Brissett is hilarious because he took off and ran one time in the game last week, and everybody like he had like I saw it. It was like a 15-yard run, and I was like, "There's no fucking way Jacoby Brissett just ran for 15 yards on my screen." I almost turned the screen off. I almost had to, out of respect for the sport.
Yeah, I mean, I would have told you to turn. I didn't know you were watching. I would have told you to turn
Yeah,
that screen off
it
and
was. It
watch it.
wasn't. It wasn't. Like I had 8 games on my 2 monitors, and it was the one that was furthest away from my eye. If it makes you feel any better.
Yeah,
Amari Cooper, I don't hate that. He has Jacoby Brissett at quarterback though, so it's kind of like whatever. He's gonna get open enough to get these many yards. It's just is Jacoby gonna hit him, which last week he did not. Oof.
yeah.
No, no, no,
I would love
no.
to probably go under that Kyler 295 and a half total
Yeah,
yards.
that
That's
doesn't
just
hurt my feelings at all.
a disgusting number for him,
Yeah.
considering how he just played. And Max Crosby, you know, on the edge, and he's in Chandler Jones. They're going to get to him. And again, I don't see that game being very close. And if it's not close, there's just no shot in hell that he picks
No,
up those
I
yards.
agree. Now Trace McSorley, if he had a over 100 total yards, I would consider that for fourth
Yeah,
quarter purposes. But Derek
exactly.
Carr, I kind of like the over for Derek Carr, 272. I mean, again, I don't see a world in which they slow down Devontae or Darren Waller. I think Waller's targets last week were a little bit, a little down. I mean, he had 6 targets, but it's just because Devontae Parker or Devontae. Oh God, Devontae Adams, not Parker. Devontae Adams, the
not,
one,
not,
the
not to ever
Devontae,
be mistaken. Yeah.
the Devontae that can actually get open. Well, there's two Devontaes that can get open: Devontae Adams, Devontae Smith. Devontae Parker, unfortunately, is not in that club. Devontae Parker is not very good. Devontae Adams is, and 100 receiving yards is a lot, but he's a special player. I would tend to maybe do something like that and correlate the two, because if he has 100 receiving yards, Derek Carr's definitely going to have 272 passing yards. So I think that those correlate well. If you're going to do something like that, it just gives you a free, just a free extra one to add on if you're going to do either one. Um, yeah, I like the Raiders in that game a lot. I do not like any of this whatsoever. No. Cooper Cup. That's weird. Why'd they sprinkle Kyle Pitts down here? I don't like that either. I guess they were trying to trick me into thinking he was a Ram. He's not. I'm not taking that. Cooper Cup. Again, it depends on game script, but like he's always probably a safe bet to get 100 yards. I mean, he obviously wasn't against Cincinnati, but most of the time he's a safe bet to get 100 yards. Stafford. That's not bad. Darrell Henderson. I mean, I would like to see what his props are. I'll have to go look what his actual props are. But I think if he gets 13 carries and 5 receptions, he's gonna go over 100 all-purpose yards this week. If they actually give him that amount of volume again, that's just dependent on that. This is, I mean, probably there if I had to guess, but.
Yeah.
Again, these games, like once we get into the stinkers, it's kind of like, just.
I mean, hold on. Can we talk about the dick suckery going on in Underdog Fantasy with
Well,
Joe Burrow?
yeah, I know.
Lord have mercy.
I know yeah, it's absurd. It's absurd. It is
Oh
absurd.
my goodness.
It is. I agree. It's a little much. I like Joe Mixon's all-purpose yards this week. I think he has a good week against Dallas. I think if the game ends up being closer than it should be, he's going to have a good game. If the game ends up being a blowout, he's going to have a good game. I think no matter what the game script is, he's going to be in play. I kind of like the over 93 all-purpose yards for him. I don't hate Burrow's passing yards. It doesn't offend me. It is a concern though, like you mentioned. Dan Quinn is a good defensive coach, and
Yeah.
maybe limiting Joe Burrow's opportunities to throw the ball down the field. All of the 25 yards that he can make it. And, I
And
kind
also
of.
on the other side, it's like they're playing against Dallas. Obviously, we said their offense already is
Yeah.
pretty anemic, and then Cooper Rush. It's like, should we really pass all that much? Because that's probably the only way that they can be in that game is if we turn the ball over. It really may be a heavy mixing kind of day, and
That's the way I'm
those.
feeling too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm feeling that. Cooper Rush, I'm not messing with that. Zeke.
Yeah.
I mean, no, probably not. I was gonna say Zeke feels okay because I think he could score realistically, and if he scores, then you only need him to have like 40 yards, and then you've got the higher. You just have to think he's going to score, and if you don't think he's going to score, then there's no reason to take that. All these down here are fantasy points, which is weird. I don't really like it. Look, I'm not really touching the Broncos until I see more from them this week. Rashad Penny fantasy points. I actually don't hate that one because I do think he may stumble into the end zone somehow. Geno Smith's total yards I don't hate a ton. I know the Niners defense is solid, but I mean he's going to run a little. He's going to throw a lot.
I think it's a little high, honestly.
Think so? I mean, you could.
Yeah.
realistically,
I think it's
take
a lot of
over.
speed on that, field. So I don't really think the running game will be there. And
Yeah.
Does he get 220 or so passing yards?
It depends on the game script. It depends on how bad San Francisco's beaten them and how
Right.
early. I think there is a universe in which he does end up throwing for quite a few yards just because they have to keep up. But again, it's just kind of tough to say. Trey Lance, I would honestly lean towards the over on his total yards. I don't really know what his passing yards is going to look like, but I think his total yards at 244 is not a bad bet. Just because there's question marks in the backfield for San Fran. I think he may carry more of a workload on the ground. And I think passing wise, if he passes for 190, I think they probably hit the over on the total yards if I had to guess. Other than that, Jeff Wilson, I'm not touching. Debo, I like this week, but I would need to see another prop other than fantasy points. Same with Ayuk, I don't usually like, but I don't know what his prop is. Fields, total yards against Green Bay. Ooh.
Yeah, it's probably just a spot where we may not just touch anything there.
Yeah, I mean, it probably is. Part of me just thinks, like, as a quarterback, if you don't get 232 total yards, you are not doing your job. But then again, that is
Yes, you'll be describing his first couple years of
yes,
the
yes, I
national
would be.
football.
I would be. Yeah, I would be. And again, these. I mean, I mean, I don't know. These games down here are tougher to bet on for me, especially this one. They don't have the Monday night props yet, so when they do the Monday night props, we'll talk about those. But yeah, I mean, you guys saw most of the props that we chose, most of the props that we looked at. Those are the ones and the ones that we talk about are the ones that we feel mostly confident in. The rest of them, again, when you get down the list here, it gets a little dicey. And even Underdog Fantasy knows it because they only have fantasy points. They don't even have an actual prop for most of these guys. They're just like, dude, we don't know.
Yeah.
Like CeeDee Lamb, like what, 4.5 catches? We don't know. He could end up with 8. He could end up with 3. Like, just nobody knows. So it's hard to give him a prop because it's so volatile with a lot of these guys. So, I mean, again, especially down here, you get into, like, territory of, like, nobody really knows what they're going to do. So we're going to go ahead and wrap things up. It has been an hour and 20 minutes. That is a long time. We may break these videos up into 2 different videos going forward where we do our betting picks in one video and our Underdog Fantasy prop picks in another video, just to preserve time, just for the YouTube algorithm and whatnot. But we are going to go ahead and wrap things up here. We will be back. I don't know if we're going to do something after Thursday night's game. Maybe on Friday we talk about Thursday night's game. That's a possibility. We'll just have to see. Keep your eyes peeled onto the channel. We are posting like 3 or 4 or 5 videos a week. So keep it up, dude. Keep stay here. Hit the subscribe. Hit the like. All that. Comment. Tell us, hey, your picks are trash. Here are the actual picks that you should make. And we'll make your picks, dude. We'll make your picks. If you tell me what picks to make, I'll make your picks. I promise. All right? So, all that being said, without further ado, we're going to get up out of here. Don't forget, go on forth.